The Goat Owls is back. Ranking defensive tackles 32-1 for the upcoming 2025 season. Been doing a bunch of these videos, more to come, but let's get into the defensive tackles. 32, Cowboys defensive tackle Osa Odighizuwa just got a massive contract this offseason. The Cowboys banking on upside. He showcased a little bit of that last year. Very solid interior pass rusher. Needs to be much more consistent stopping the run, but he's on his way. John Franklin Myers of the Broncos at 31, where he went from the Jets to the Broncos, played a little bit better than expected last year. See if he can continue to repeat that performance. The Vikings' new defensive tackle at number 30, Javon Hargrave. A little tricky one to rank because he was injured last year. Very solid year before for San Francisco, at the same time being underwhelming because you expect elite things from him. But it's still a 7-sack season. Year before with Philadelphia had an elite season, but not expecting him to get back there. But when healthy, which is most of the time, a pretty damn solid defensive tackle. So to me, if he stays healthy, he's probably going to be better than this. If he doesn't stay healthy, he's probably going to be off this list. T'Vondre Sweat, after a really good rookie season for the Tennessee Titans, this is a dominant run stuffer, takes on double teams, creates for his teammates, has a lot of upside getting after the quarterback. I'm really excited about his future. Couple Rams, a newcomer for the Rams, Poona Ford, had a really good season, a kind of a re-breakout season for the Chargers last year as a solid run stuffer, and that's exactly what the Rams needed. So something new in there for LA. And then Braden Fisk did a really good job getting after the quarterback last year from the interior. Could do a little better job stopping the run. Was a little banged up at the end of the year. But yeah, I want to see more snaps, a little more consistency, but he was very productive getting after the quarterback. Brian Bresee of the Saints, young defensive tackle. I thought he took a step up last year. I mean, he's a guy that I could see, next year us ranking, much higher. And this, same goes for Fisk. I feel like they're very similar players, but these guys are ready to. They already kind of broke out in a way, but anytime they could explode. And the Vikings nose tackle Harrison Phillips. The Vikings were number 2 stopping the run in football last year, and this is why. Harrison Phillips doesn't, rack up a ton of sacks or anything, but this is a dominant run-stuffing interior defensive lineman and was a big reason the Vikings were so good at it last year. 24, the Bucs' young defensive tackle, Kalijah Kancey. I thought he took a big step up last year. We know he can get after the quarterback, but I thought he took, and he's got that. I thought he took a step up stopping the run, so a little underrated. He's a guy that can break out even further at any time. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers know their interior defensive lineman, so that's a guy that's going to continue to grow. Another Vikings newcomer in Jonathan Allen, who was pretty consistently a top 10 or at worst 15 defensive tackle, but injured last year. But when he was on the field, he's still Jonathan Allen, so he's another tough one to rank, but he comes at 23. Kenny Clark kind of in the same boat for different reasons. I thought he took a big step down last year, but I know, Kenny Clark has been a dominant defensive tackle, so I know he's got more in him. Can he get kind of back on track? Ed Oliver, still, you feel like he still has upside. We're saying that every single year, but he has his flashes, against the pass, getting, collapsing the pocket, getting pressure on the quarterback. Could be a little more consistent stopping the run. Expected a little bit more from him last year, but he has some big moments. Byron Murphy II, the Seattle Seahawks second-year defensive tackle. I thought he had doesn't get talked about enough. He missed some games early, but I thought he had a very solid season for the Seattle Seahawks, and not a lot of production, but he took on a lot of double teams. He stopped the run at a very high level. Felt like he created for his teammate. The Seattle Seahawks were much better with him, not only active, but on the field. The defense, it was night and day difference. So, this guy has what it takes to be a top 10 defensive tackle, and he's going to take another step in that direction this year. He wouldn't rank here based off last year, but we're focused on this 2025 upcoming season. Kobe Turner has been very productive getting after the quarterback for the LA Rams. It could be a little more consistent, kind of flashy, but very flashy, but been very important for LA in his couple young seasons. Milton Williams, a newcomer for the New England Patriots, was awesome down the stretch for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's all about upside. He still got that upside, but he kind of showed it in big moments down the stretch, in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's exactly what the Patriots need next to Christian Barmore, so he comes in at 18. Daron Payne of the Washington Commanders, a little underwhelmed last year because I know he's got more in him, but he's still, very solid defensive tackle. I know we're kind of used to Jonathan Allen being the better Washington Commanders defensive tackle. I think, Allen being a little injured last year, Payne kind of having more, Allen already hitting the upside, Payne kind of having a little bit more of that upside. I should say Allen hitting the ceiling, already at that ceiling, and Payne having a little more upside. I think he kind of passed him a little bit last year, but still expecting a little bit more from Daron Payne because I know he has the ability to be better than 17 even, but there's so many good defensive tackles. I mean, all these guys in this list, even guys that were left off the list, are very good. The top 16, a lot of good ones here. Zach Allen, the Broncos defensive lineman, coming in at 16. He had a career year last year. Another breakout season. Was way better than I expected him to be at that point of his career. I felt like he added a lot of physicality to him. He's always been a bigger dude, but just seems to be playing the game at a much more physical level. I mean, incredible, causing pressure, disrupting, getting after the quarterback last year. Another one of those guys that could be a little more consistent stopping the run, but nitpicking, looking for an extension. We'll see if the Broncos and him could work out something in somewhere in the near future. But Christian Barmore of the Patriots, I feel like people are forgetting about him a little bit when talking about these big name. And we're getting into the stars. We're starting to get into the stars, but he was out last year, so that'd be the reason why, health issues kept him out. Year before, he had a monster season. It was a breakout year for him, and I don't know, the way people talk, it's almost like they're expecting setbacks with him, but he's still so young and still growing, and he still has the best football ahead of him. Like, he's just getting going, where I don't expect any setbacks. I still expect the best football to come, and last time we seen him play, he's playing really good football. So hard to rank him ahead of like the stars ahead of him, right? But he's got it in him to be great. Ravens defensive tackle Nnamdi Madubuike. I thought he had a better year 2 years ago compared to last year, but still very, very solid. The Ravens are number one in football stopping the run. He's really not the only reason for that at all. I mean, look at the other defensive linemen and linebackers, Roquan Smith. But it's one of the best defensive lines in football when you're talking about getting after quarterback, from guys like this, but mainly stopping the run, but from guys like this. So very solid defensive lineman. Alim McNeill of the Lions, I think he's a little underrated just because all the guys ranked around him on your screen right now are household names. These are huge names, and you just do not hear Alim McNeill's name enough probably. Yeah, he did miss some time last year, but man, the Lions defense with and without Alim McNeill is night and day. I can't, exaggerate that enough. It's just a complete difference with and without Alim McNeill, and he's still growing. I mean, he came in the league as a polished run defender, so he's got that going from a monster run defender, but he is really adding more to his game, really growing as a pass rusher. There was some thought he'd be strictly a nose tackle, a good one, but just stopping the run when he was coming out of college, but much, much more than that. So important in the line. So Forrest Buckner at 12, the Colt star defensive tackle. Maybe not quite as good as he was a few years ago, but it's really not far off. He has some games pop up where you're going like he's an absolute problem for that opposing offensive line. There's just so many stars in today's NFL. So he's at 12. Zach Sealer coming in at number 11, other very underrated guy, a monster year last year, stepping up, and he was already good and underrated before that, but stepping up with Christian Wilkins gone. Remember Christian Wilkins, one of the beautiful things with the Dolphins with him was they moved him around almost like he can align anywhere pretty much. But you see him across the whole, even all the way inside to nose tackle, and then even getting after the quarterback, a little bit wider than just over the guard. And I thought Sealer did a great job, not just stepping up and getting production, but just being that versatile piece. I mean, you saw him lined up in a lot of different spots and beating guys off the jump, beating guys with move, getting after the quarterback, stopping the run in the backfield. I mean, the guy was, in the Dolphins, like down the stretch, ended up being a much better from the front, like run defense and just causing interior pressure way better than expected to me. So that was the reason. They didn't really, how much else did they have up there, at least on paper? I mean, this was the guy that carried them. So I was very much impressed. He is that good. And then a couple tricky guys to rank. You can't forget about these guys, but Derek Brown was injured last year. The Panthers' run defense, night and day difference without him. I mean, he is one of the better run defenders in football. Of course, he needs to grow as a pass rusher, but you see the upside. He has it in him. But, I mean, when I talk about him stopping a run, it's some of the other guys in the league, they stop the run by, and those guys are underrated because they stop the run by not even making the tackle, just by having their body there. Derek Brown could do that, but he's also going to rack up the production, the tackles as well. You want him to take a step up, rack up a little more production, get after the quarterback and staying healthy. But there's not too many Derek Browns in football right now, and people don't realize how important it is. So a little tricky to rank. Christian Wilkins as well, especially him, because there's still some talk about, is he right? Is he 100%? But, I mean, this is a damn good defensive line, versatile defensive line that can line up pretty much anywhere, could win on running and passing downs, equally effective on both. And even though we talk about the Dolphins, maybe didn't miss him as much as we thought. I mean, it's just still a superstar caliber player here. It just, we didn't get to see him, like we wanted to, and hopefully we get to see him like we want to this year. So you got paid that much money 2 off seasons ago or last off season, I should say, for a reason. So gotta rank him the top 10. The top 8 for the upcoming 2025 season. So essentially with all these rankings, I'm predicting the upcoming season. Cam Hayward, as old as he is, still gotta say he's easily a top 10 defensive tackle. I mean, he's still playing at a monster level, a high level, just making the impact for that defense, elevating the guys around him. It's just, even though maybe it's time for him to take a step down, you can't really predict it. You can't really drop him too much in the rankings, so I put him at 8. Leonard Williams had a monster season. I felt like he's been underrated. Teams like kind of showing maybe they don't really want him that much. I've always been really confused. Like, I felt like he's always been super solid, and he had a monster year under Mike McDonald, maybe best one yet, and he's had some really good years. Just doing a little bit of everything for the Seattle Seahawks. Just such an impact in so many different ways. So very much impressed. Quinnen Williams of the Jets coming in at number 6. Really good interior, one of the better interior pass rushers. I mean, one of the best. He's up there, interior pass rushers. I know, if again, another one of those guys, perfect world, could be a little more consistent stopping the run, but he's not really lacking it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be ranked 6, right? It's just to kind of be ranked a little bit higher. Vita Vea, I think, has become somehow a little bit underrated. I mean, everyone thinks he's awesome. Everyone thinks he's good, but I just don't think people realize the impact that he makes. I mean, this is an elite run stopper, creates for his teammates, has to deal with a bunch of double teams, and he is very underrated getting after the quarterback from the interior. Very underrated. I mean, the Bucs always, the defensive front is always strong, it seems like, and especially stopping the run. They know, like, going into a year, they have to stop the run, and I'm a big stop the run on defense. If you can't stop the run, you're in trouble. Yeah, at the end of the day, they sometimes give up a lot through the air, but they know we gotta be able to be strong as can be up front in the interior, and this is one of the best at that, and it's the reason the Bucs are strong up there. So such an important player, way more valuable than people think. Jeffrey Simmons, I almost want to say he might be a little underrated. People don't talk about him enough. He's a guy that I honestly, it's just because I think he could be the best defensive tackle in football. So I'm always at the end of the year like saying, God, we can get a little bit more from Jeffrey Simmons. So in a way, you could say underwhelming, but that's just because I really think, based on what I've seen from him, that the flashes, and I'm not saying he's inconsistent, but I could see he can be the best defensive tackle in football. I mean, there are games, and not just a few games, a lot of games, and the Titans aren't this biggest threat, but when teams kind of struggled, the Titans are a little bit the last few years, and they had some really good teams, by the way, too, so it wasn't like they're always bad. But when teams like really have a problem with their defensive front, it's Jeffrey Simmons. There's games where you're going, this guy is single-handedly killing this team. Like, he is a problem, like unblockable. You double team him, it's just one of those rare guys where sometimes you just do not have an answer for him, and that's rare. It's unique. He could become an elite household name if he just does that full season. I think the Titans being better could help. Chris Jones at 3, and Chris Jones has been one for so long for me. And then when I made this, I had him at 2, but not that he's too old, but he played so many snaps last year, and you actually expected for him to be Chris Jones. You expected maybe a little bit more production-wise, but I think the Chiefs could kind of take it easy in the regular season with him this year. So that and I heard that elsewhere. I'm not just making that up, and it makes sense, right? So that kind of played a factor here. Who's going to be, the rankings are based on where everyone's going to be for this 2025 season. But yeah, he was my pick for Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago. He didn't get it, obviously. Or was that 3 years ago? The year Nick Bosa won. I'm just so impressed. One of my favorite defenders of that last how many years. I can't really expect him to get any better, but not saying he's going to get worse. I think he might play less snaps this year in the regular season, that is, not in the playoffs. than we saw last year. But Jalen Carter is just ready to take over. I mean, he could be number one after this year very easily. I mean, we saw it, the impact moments, the way he, it's just unique, rare ability. The way he collapses the pocket in a hurry like no other. It's just in a blink of an eye. Wins with power, wins with quickness, wins with speed of the get off. He has the ability to be one of the better defensive tackles. I mean, he has to do some work to get to this level, be one of the better ones we've ever seen. He has that in him. Coming out, there was character concerns, so he's got to. It's really not an issue right now. We got to keep that under control and just got to keep progressing, keep going 100%. And I really don't have a doubt with him. Then Dexter Lawrence has to be number one. The way he's playing the last couple of years, but right now, especially. Could argue he's the best run stuffer. You're talking about pure run stuffer. I think I'd go Dexter Lawrence versus Vita Vea. Derek Brown, if he's healthy, is right there as well. Some other guys we talked about, I think they can get up there. They're not far off, but I think in just pure run stuffer, it's Dexter Lawrence versus Vita Vea. And Dexter Lawrence brings so much more to the table. I'm not really saying, he brings a little bit more to the table than Vita Vea, but that really wasn't my point. I think Vita Vea brings a lot more than people think. But Dexter Lawrence, again, another guy that's going to get double teamed a ton. The way he's just going to just make the quarterback's job that much harder. I mean, the amount of times you see him when he doesn't beat a guy off the snap, he wins the rep by pushing his opponent into the quarterback and just claps the pocket better than anyone in the league, basically. Uses that length, uses that raw power. Just an absolute problem. The Giants have built what looks like, what I'm pretty sure is a very good defensive line on paper around Dexter Lawrence, and that's just going to get more out of everybody. It's not a surprise to me that he's become the best in football. It's something I kind of thought could happen when he was coming out of Clemson. I thought he was even underrated coming out just because he didn't have crazy sack numbers. People go get a little too crazy with the sack numbers from college guys sometimes, but this is a guy, the way he plays, he does not need the sack numbers because he's basically generating them without getting them, and he's doing so much more. So I didn't question it. He's number one. Chris Jones has been. Aaron Donald was for a very long time. Chris Jones, was right there with Aaron Donald. It was like him and those two, and then Aaron Donald left, and it was kind of Chris Jones. So some very good defensive tackles, good ones that are kind of left off this list here. But we're gonna take a look at some fans' inputs here. I asked ex-subscribers to let me know their defensive tackle rankings. So we have Aiden Weingartner has Chris Jones 1, Dexter Lawrence 2. Yeah, you could still say that. Chris Jones is that much of an impact. Quinnen Williams 3, Jeffrey Simmons, Cam Hayward, Jalen Carter, Vita Vea, Christian Barmore up there. So good to see some love for Christian Barmore, Leonard Williams, Derek Brown. So a lot of similarities there. Jalen Carter a little bit lower. Chris Jones at 1. And then, Barmore making that list. Ian, Dexter Lawrence, Chris Jones, Jalen Carter, so very similar top 3. That's actually what I originally had, but I'm thinking Jalen Carter takes that next step. Chris Jones, not getting any better, not that he's getting worse. Quinnen Williams, Jeffrey Simmons, DeForest Buckner, Leonard Williams, Vita Vea, Matabuke, Milton Williams at number 10. He can get there. The flashes he was showing late, which shows some upside. Jonathan Allen, Byron Murphy could have great seasons too. Ed Oliver, another good one. I'm ready for Byron Murphy to really explode one of these years. Could be coming up. Gavin Mallard, Chris Jones, Dexter Lawrence, Jeffrey Simmons, Jalen Carter, Quinnen Williams, Vita Vea, Cam Hayward. There's Matabuke and Buckner again. A lot of the other ones pretty similar to what we all had, but good to see these different rankings. BTJ season has meant, giving shout outs to his Jags guys. Ark Armstead was here. I always loved Armstead's game. I felt like he was super, super underrated. Last year was not the case, though. I was pretty underwhelmed by him last year. Maybe he can get back on track. Mason Smith is a prospect I've liked even before, since the first time he stepped on a field for LSU. So it's a guy with a lot of, a freaky up. He has elite physical traits. So he has it in him to be special. It's just a little early. Chris Jones, Aleem McNeil, some love for him. I love to see that as well. I think he's a little underrated just because you don't hear his name with the other guys' names. Sexy Dexty Lawrence, Jalen Carter, Quinnen Williams. So some similar names there, always good to see. Just some differences. There's some other different, few different names that pop up here. But just from the fans' input, always interesting to see. But we'll continue. We got to do linebackers. We got to do corners and safeties. And we have a lot of these rankings and other types of videos on the channel. But we're kind of getting there. I just cannot wait for the content that goes right around roster cut deadline and then the in-season content is like no other. So I'm excited. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.